Let's hope that creators are going to get something out of this new 5.2 SRD. This is going to be a pretty long live stream today. I've got, thankfully, a chest full of drinks. I've got an empty cup around here somewhere. No, I'll get up and go if I have to do that. But I am joined today with Bear, the Gen X GM, and I've got some questions. Now, Bear, how much, how aware are you of the SRD hoopla that's been going around?
There's current hoopla with the SRD going around.
Yeah,
Oh, I haven't heard. What's the hoopla?
yeah. So evidently, there are some creators out there that are trying to stir the pot, if you will. And listen, I'm all for slamming Wizards of the Coast when it's warranted. When they decided to sell a Magic the Gathering, anniversary pack that's not playable for tournament play for $1,000.
$1,000. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, they need to catch some crap for that. When they, throughout the OGL issues, what back in 2022, 2023, whenever it was, trying to redefine the terms of that. That was, it was warranted for us to get upset with them. But the current one, this SRD 5.2, which has not yet been released, which is one reason why I'm doing a marathon live stream today. But this new SRD 5.2, some folks are saying that it is going to rip away your rights as a creator to create content for D&D. Some folks are saying that, oh, what it's going to do is Wizards is going to take everything that you create, feed it into an AI engine, and they're going to create all this new content on your hard work because they just fired all of their creative teams.
Bear's sound is off. We mean it's off. Where is it? Is it over there? Is it over there, or am I just talking too low? Do you need me to speak loudly, sir?
Oh, I can hear you fine.
Loudly. Yeah, I think what the problem is that I might be low in Restream. Let me just check what it says on my end for my volume setting. Give me a second. Yeah, I saw that whole thing about, they just want all your work. And I'm like, really? They want all my great creative work. Well, isn't that nice?
Yeah, so I want to point one thing out. The SRD, that is a system reference document.
The deuce, you
5.2
say?
is all it's going to do is provide to us the terminologies, the rule set
Yeah.
that we need to be able to include into our new creations for the new fifth edition. It would be the OGL that would be listing what Wizards has the right to do to take your content. That OGL is not changing. It is the same OGL 1.0A that came out that they put into Creative Commons, which means they cannot go back and change that.
Right. How's it now, Roger? Is it better? I turned up all my mic settings. Is it better now? Morning, Swords and Stones. Yeah, I think people are, especially in the online RPG world, are very chicken little, and
Mhm.
they love to run around screaming the sky is falling every time something
The
happens. And
sky is falling,
oh
and it
yes,
just got worse.
and WotC is their favorite target for that.
Yeah, yeah.
WotC could literally say, "Here, guys, we're putting out this free players reference guide. It's going to be free for free RPG day. Everyone gets a copy. Oh my God, WotC's trying to steal everything, and WotC's undermining. Ah!"
Pretty much, pretty much.
I have issues with WotC. I will always have issues with WotC.
Me as well. Yes.
But I believe in hanging thieves for the crimes they committed, not the ones I wish they committed.
Exactly. Yeah. That's kind of my point. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to do a really long live stream today, because one of the things that I want to do is the first thing actually that I want to do is we'll pop this up. We'll move me over because.
Oh, well.
But the second thing I'm going to do is reach into my cooler, and we're going to have a cold one. I hope you guys brought your own drinks. If you were here, I would share. But The third thing I want to do, let's take a look at the Open Gaming License, the OGL. Now, this is Wikipedia. Oh, that's so refreshing. This is Wikipedia, right? And it just goes over the basics of it. Anybody can go there. You know, you can navigate to it and read it for yourself. But I want to point out a couple of highlights. The OGL, and this is the first section points out the language of the license. It states that in consideration for agreeing to use this license, the OGL, the contributors grant you a perpetual worldwide royalty-free non-exclusive license with the exact terms of this license to use the open gaming content. And then it defines two forms of content, the open gaming content and then product identity. Product identity would be stuff like the logos, specific artwork and specific characters, Vecna, stuff like that. The OGL originally was published by Wizards of the Coast in the year 2000 for 3rd edition.
Sure.
Okay. Then it was updated for 4th edition, and then it was updated for 5th edition. Now, the new I call it 5.5. Some people call it 5.24 because, you know, it came out in 2024. But the SRD, Systems Reference Document, under OGL 1.0a was for the original 5th edition of the game, which came out in 2016. The OGL, or the SRD for that 5th edition.
Mm-hmm.
The new 5.5 that only just came out. Well, over the past 4 months, 5 months. So now, and if I've got my timing correct, we're going to jump over here and check out the new Systems Reference Document 5.2. So if you want, you can navigate to D&D Beyond. You can see I'm not breaking any copyrights. I want to make that clear. I am looking at what is publicly available. You notice that I am not signed into my D&D Beyond account. This is information that is free and open to anybody to take a look at and check out at their leisure. But I want to go over it with everybody today because I want to dissect it. And I want to see if there's any truth to any of these rumors that Wizards is going to take your stuff and plug it into an AI for their own use.
Yo, man, Wizards are going to take all your stuff, they're going to put it in AI, and then they're going to use it to help Russia defeat the Ukraine, man. I heard it from a guy. He told me. This is the problem with this nonsense.
Sure. Yeah, and that's what it is. It is nonsense. And that's why I want to take a look at it. I don't want to shout, oh my God, the sky is falling and it just got worse, or it's all over. Because it's not.
This is available on D&D Beyond now?
It is available on D&D Beyond as we speak.
Where on D&D Beyond?
So for those of you following along, if you want, you hit up D&D Beyond. This is their main page, right?
Yeah.
Scroll down.
Yeah.
This very first article, you can now publish your own creations using the new core rules.
Yep.
If you click read more, the Systems Reference Document 5.2, SRD 5.2 is now available on, just click that hyperlink right there. That takes you to it. So for those of you at home that are following along, the System Reference Document contains D&D rules, content that you can use and reference to publish content under Creative Commons. Now, what is Creative Commons, Bear? Do you know what that is?
That's when a bunch of hippies sit around in front of a school and they smoke drugs and sing Kumbaya, right?
You're close.
Commons? No?
You're close. You're very, very close. That's when they comment. Yeah, no, you're far off. No, Creative Commons is a form of copyright that isn't basically an open license to publish without fear of having a lawsuit thrown against you for using specific content. It's much bigger than that, but that's a basic explanation of what Creative Commons is.
Sure.
And it states the purpose of this system reference document is to provide a foundation of D&D content on which third-party publishers can build their products. Allows creators to reference and use the base game rules for D&D in their products without need to pay a licensing fee to Wizards of the Coast.
Well, that sounds generous.
The SRD and Creative Commons do not apply to the use of D&D content in streaming, fan art, cosplay, and other fan content. These are permitted as described in Wizards fan content policy, which we'll take a look at as well, because that is also new and updated, but we'll do that after we take a look at this. They've also established a creator frequently asked questions section, and we're going to take a look at that. You've got a button here to download the SRD. And again, this is for the general player that is just wanting to meet on a Friday night or a Saturday afternoon and play with your buddies or go online and play. This SRD is going to be absolutely meaningless to you. You don't need to worry about that. What this is specifically for is for folks that want to create something, write something. If I want to create an adventure, write a module, or if Bear wants to, just go balls to the wall and create a complete setting that all takes place in Dungeons and Dragons, uses Dungeons and Dragons intellectual property. That's where this is going to come in. This is for creators that want to publish that either for free or to make money. This is what's going to allow them to do that using the new 5.5 material.
Yeah, but you can't publish your own campaigns. It says so right in their SRD FAQ.
Well, so you haven't got there yet. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Well, you mentioned me, so I was all excited, but whatever.
Well, we'll get there. It's down here. So there's an overview table that kind of differentiates between what the SRD 5.1 had, which again was for the original 5th edition, versus what SRD 5.2 offers. So I want to design content using the 2014 5th edition rule set for D&D. You do that under the SRD 5.1. Or you could also publish it on DM's Guild. That is a whole different can of worms that I'm not going to really address today. But if you want to design content using the new 2024 5th edition rule set, you'd have to use the SRD 5.2. I want to publish my own campaign using 2014 edition rule set. Yeah, you can do that. Notice, Bear, my own campaign.
Yes, in 5.1, absolutely.
I want to publish my own campaign using the 2024 5th edition. That's under 5.2. I want to publish content using Forgotten Realms. You can only do that on DM's Guild. I want to print and sell 2014 or 2024 5th edition content on my own. Yeah, you can do that. So some of the facts. What are the differences between 5.1 and 5.2? There's a legal disclaimer, the wording changed only. Table of contents. There's a new table of contents in the 5.2. They added rhythm of play and exploration in 5.2. Character creation, they just changed the wording and mechanics on that. Classes, same thing. They changed the wording and mechanics. For character origins in 5.2, they added the soldier, Goliath, and orc. They removed half-elf, half-orc, as those are not in the 2024 core rules.
Racists.
Yeah, for various reasons. Feats, they've added 14 total feats to the 5.2. Equipment, and see, this is where I think it's kind of neat that they're getting down to the nitty gritty on this by specifying they added a musket, they added a pistol, they added brewing potions of healing to 5.2. They're pretty specific in this fact. The spells, they added the 19 new spells that didn't exist in the 2014 version. Game rules, they've added the glossary. They removed between adventure section that's not featured in the 2024 core rules. Basically, that's downtime stuff.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure why they removed that, because to me that I feel if I was a new player or a new DM, I feel like that would be some kind of important information to have.
Yep.
They added travel pace and environmental effects under the gameplay toolbox. Well, I'm not too keen on this one, although in, I believe, the original 5.1, I don't know that we had access to being able to use the deck of many things. But it looks like in 5.2, the deck of many things is in there, but it's simply been renamed to a mysterious deck. That's an interesting one. I'll have to go back and research that one to see if deck of many things was in the original SRD.
The deck of many Abrams.
But if we're now able to play or create content that is specific to the cards in the deck of many things, that's pretty cool. I can deal with that. They added the hippopotamus as a monster, the pirate as a monster, the troll limb as a monster, and the vampire familiar as a monster. They've updated the monster names and stat blocks. They've removed fantasy historical pantheons and the planes of existence, as those are not rules bearing to play 5th edition. Makes sense. I would be a little confused as to why they have removed the planes of existence, because while they're not, I agree it's not rules bearing to play, it is setting. It is a setting environment.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll have to take a look a little further into the 5.2 just to see. Why are some of the names of spells, items, monsters different from the names in the core rule books? Now, simply put, yes, this is kind of what I would figure. They've renamed some of the content so it can be freely used by creators without infringing upon Wizards' intellectual property. The functionality of that content is going to stay the same. Let's see, why is a class, spell, monster, etc. not in SRD 5.2? 5.2 includes a wide range of content from the rulebooks. Some classes, such as the Artificer, species like the Aasimar, and monsters, including the Beholder, have been excluded. These exclusions are based on brand identity protection, licensing strategy, and intellectual property rights. The Artificer. That's going to be a tough one to justify to me, only because I have always envisioned at its core, in its most watered down version, an Artificer would be an adventurer in medieval or Western, but has a slight touch of technology. What was Wild Wild West?
Oh, yes.
I would venture to say that there's a lot of artificers in that show. And I'm talking about the show, not necessarily the movie. The movie for sure. The movie definitely with Will Smith for sure. But I'm talking about the old Western, like, the 1950s, 60s. Yeah, I watched it a lot as a kid. SRD 5.1, there was confusion around whether any named monster that appeared in descriptions but not as stat blocks were part of the actual content. So they've removed stuff like Strahd, Orcus, Tiamat. They won't show up in 5.2. 5.2 is designed to give creators a strong foundation for building original material, not to replicate every element on the D&D branding or setting. So if you wanted Tiamat, you could have insert generic 5-headed dragon here. That's what I'm reading. This is a big one. Can SRD 5.2 ever be revoked or changed? Bear, what's this first word?
I believe that word is no.
No. Once a document is published, and this is what I was saying earlier, once a document is published under the Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International License, it is permanently available under those terms. Wizards of the Coast cannot revoke or alter SRD 5.2 or remove it from Creative Commons. As rules evolve, we may publish future SRD versions, example 5.2.1, 5.3, etc., that reflect errata or new releases. Each version will remain available and independently licensed under Creative Commons. This simply means, guys, that if you were to create something that was under this new 5.2, and say in 6 months they do some errata that changes, I don't know, for some reason they decide to change the spelling of ORC to ORK. They would change the SRD to 5.2.1. Anything you create that you want to include the word ORC in, ORC, that's going to automatically fall under 5.2. If you decide to create a pamphlet or a booklet or whatever that has that word ORC spelled ORK, well, that would fall under the 5.2.1.
Yeah.
Dice Tales asks, is 5.1 Creative Commons? Yes. Yes, it is. How will errata interact with SRD 5.2? Well, it already includes all second printing errata as of its release. So if you have a book, if you got the original release day Dungeon Master's Guide, it's already been updated. You know, you got a collector's edition now. You got wording in it that doesn't exist in the second printing of it. This 5.2 already has that second printing errata listed. And that's kind of what they were alluding to in this one, that when there's an update made, it'll go to 5.1.2. So on this, when future errata to the 2024 core rule books are issued, Wizards may release updated SRD versions. When will localized versions of SRD 5.2 be released? They're planning to release later in 2025, following the launch of the Monster Manual in French, Italian, German, and Spanish. Then you'll get your updated localized version of the SRD. Can I use both SRD 5.1 and 5.2 in the same product? Yes, you can. Can I mix 5.2 content with older? Understood, Bear. Thank you. Can you mix SRD 5.2 content with older editions? Yes, but you'll need to ensure compatibility on your own. SRD 5.2 is based on the 2024 rules, so mechanics may differ from older versions. So, for example, I have on my channel, I've done a few monster comparisons from 2024 or 2014 to 2024, just trying to see, you know, exactly what the key differences between those monsters are, right? And if you wanted to mix those two together, the most recent one I think was the dire wolf, because, you know, that was kind of big in the news about, you know, scientists cloning them, which they didn't actually clone them, but anyway. So we compared the 2014 dire wolf to the 2024 dire wolf, and while they're similar in a lot of respects, there are some key differences. And so at the end of that video, we posited how cool would it be to use both of those in an adventure where when the party does encounter the dire wolf, the ones from 2014, because they're slightly different than 2024, you've got a little bit of a variety for that encounter. This mixing of 5.2 content with older editions would certainly allow for that if you wanted to publish something officially. Can I use SRD 5.2 for crowdfunding, such as Kickstarter, Patreon, etc.? Yes, SRD 5.2 can be used commercially under Creative Commons, including for crowdfunding and ongoing support platforms, as long as you follow attribution guidelines. Rivers asks, sorry I'm late, but will there be two SRDs for 5e? There are two SRDs for 5e. There's SRD 5.1, which is going to cover everything from the 2014 version of the game. And then this new one that just released today, SRD 5.2, which is going to cover everything for the 2024 version. And what we're looking at today, of course, is the 5.2. And of course, in this same article, you could, if you want to download the system reference document 5.1, you can do that. We're not going to look at it because I mean, it's been out for a number of years. Today's concentration is, however, looking at this one. So I'm going to go ahead and download it, and we're going to check it out. I'm going to see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Here we go. There we go. And I'm going to have me another drink of my drink. Oh, and by the way, anybody that that wants to join in, I'll throw this on here real quick. If you'd like to join in on the actual live stream, be here and chat, give me some commentary. The invite code is going to be down in the description below, but it's also over in my Discord channel for those of you that are in Discord. Give me 1 second. I'm kind of thirsty. It's tasty stuff. All right, so let's see. Legal information. System reference document 5.2 is provided to you free of charge. And again, this is public information. You can go to D&D Beyond, and it's the very first article there. And you can download this if you want to follow along. It's provided to you free of charge by Wizards of the Coast under the Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International License. This work includes material from the System Reference Document 5.2, SRD 5.2, by Wizards of the Coast. Do not include any other attribution or its parents or affiliates other than that provided above. You may, however, include a statement on your work indicating that it's compatible with 5th edition or 5e compatible. Basically, this is what you would need to, this section here is what you would need to include in any derivative works that you create that you are intent on trying to sell. You just have to have that wording in there. So let's see, we've got a little bit of a blank page and we have the contents. So what this is, you could, in effect, never buy the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Player's Handbook, or the Monster Manual. Download this document. If you wanted to print it out, it is 361 pages long. And this has all of the rules in it, all of the information in it that you need to play the game. It's got the rules glossary. That's on page 176. That talks about the rhythm of play. All of this information is what you can use to create your own content to sell. I've said that multiple times. I'm going to scan through this quickly to take a look at it because a lot of this stuff we are pretty much familiar with. I would like to see the index of the stat blocks. I'm going to jump down to page 255 just to take a look at the monsters here. And it does show us what the monster stat blocks look like. We've got the Onkeg. Now it's a bare bones, it doesn't have all the trade dress on it or anything like that you would see direct out of the Monster Manual. It's bare bones information. But if you wanted to create an adventure that included the Onkeg, this would be the information that you would include in that adventure. If it was going to be a monster that the party would encounter. Okay. Evidently, my analysis is wrong. Creative Commons can simply be renamed under an incorporation of monetization. They argue the original attribution can be deemed to materially impede the company's development, and it's done. Redefining the Creative Commons essentially nullifies it. Sorry, you're just wrong. Well, that's not, I hate to say it, but that's not how the Creative Commons works. No company can redefine what they've already put out there. Once you put it in the Creative Commons, it's there forever. Now they can go in and they can update, that like we talked about in this just a moment ago. If they do an errata change and they want to do an SRD 5.2.1, 5.2.2, 5.2.3, different iterations of it, they can put that also in the Creative Commons, and that will, if you want to adhere to the 5.2.3 attribution. So for example, if they change Onkeg and they give it an armor class of 19. Okay. And they're putting that under 5.2.3. And you want to include on keg with 19, an armor class of 19 in your material that you have written and published, then you have to adhere to the 5.2.3. However, if you're using just what appears here with an armor class of 14, you are able to use the 5.2 SRD period. Wizards can't change that. It's already there. It's in Creative Commons at this point. I guess I'm not sure if you want to explain exactly why you feel I'm wrong on that. I'm happy to entertain it a little bit, but that's not how Creative Commons works. No company, no corporation can simply go in and nullify it. You cite that they argue the original attribution can be deemed to materially impede the company's development. I don't know if you can show me an instance in which any company has successfully done that. I'll walk back what I've said, but that's not how Creative Commons works. Further, taking a look at back up to, I mean, you can see some more of the, stat blocks, young blue dragon, if you wanted to include blue dragons for that matter. It looks like you've got access to the baby dragon, or a blue dragon wormling, young blue dragon, adult blue dragon, even an ancient blue dragon, which are all in the monster manual. So, I mean, it looks like quite a bit of the monsters are included in this SRD. And here we go, back up. I mean, if you wanted to count all of these, you see all of the A's that are listed, all of the B's. I mean, it's, and the zombie, of course, is there. Gotta always find the zombie. But it looks like, yeah, over what, right at just over 100 pages of monsters and animals that we have access, or just under 100 pages of monsters and animals that we have access to. Character origins. And I want to take a look at the very final page. It's just, yeah, it's going to end with the animals. So again, the biggest thing that a lot of people were throwing their arms up about was that this SRD was going to allow Wizards to take your creation and feed it into an AI. And it doesn't do that, guys. It just doesn't allow for that. Can I take the pieces I want and change them as I see fit to put into my system? It's my understanding that's now change. I don't know exactly what the parameters are for change. So for example, if you wanted to, I don't know, brew potions of healing, a character who has proficiency with herbalism kit can create a potion of healing. If you wanted to change that to say a character who has proficiency with lock picking can create a potion of healing, I don't know that you could get away with that, only because that alters what is listed under this particular license. Now, if you wanted to change it to 25 gold pieces raw material over the course of one day, 8 hours of work, and change that to over the course of half a day or 4 hours of work, or if you wanted to add to the end of this, for example, and say, if you found this specific type of bottle, it would allow for you to brew that potion of healing in half the time. I think that would be allowable. But to just go in and use this word for word, but change, something without adding to it, I don't think that's what, I think that's what this is prohibiting you from doing. Let's see. Okay, so I asked about a company that had something in Creative Commons and a company removing it, citing that it where was it, that it materially impeded the company's development. Asked Starblazer to point me in the direction. Technogenics did exactly this in 2024. I couldn't tell you what that is. I'll trust you on that. I'm not familiar enough with, I've never heard of Technogenics, so I don't know exactly what they are. And I don't really want to detract from what we're looking at here with the SRD. But I will look at it a little bit later. I will also state that there is a huge difference between the open gaming license, and I kind of talked about this at the beginning of the stream. There's a big difference between the open gaming license and the SRD, the Systems Reference Document. The open gaming license is the license that grants to you the ability to use Wizards of the Coast's material. The Systems Reference Document, specifically 5.2 that we're talking about today, is the document that lists the material that you can use. OGL, license to use the material. Systems Reference Document is the material you can use. Big difference. Which just a couple of days ago, I mean, like I said earlier too, there was a couple of creators out there, and I've harped on this. Oh my God, you know, the new SRD is going to grant Wizards the ability to steal your stuff and use it for their own AI stuff. No, that's not how it works. That's not what the SRD does. Now, if they put out a new OGL, an open gaming license, they could put that in there. But that's not what we're getting here. That's not what the SRD does. So Richard asks, if altered, would the SRD be applicable at all? Does it only hold power if unchanged? That is my understanding. So if you changed, gosh, what was it? There was a couple of there was a creator that, and I for the life of me cannot remember who it is now. They basically took the beholder. It was a floating head with lots of eyes, and changed its name to something else, and could legally use that without having to provide any attribution. And I really wish I could remember what that creator was and what that book was. D.D. O'Brien asks, you can change titles plus names of things and it wouldn't require the SRD attribution. Probably. Possibly. I mean, that's kind of hinting at what I was saying or talking a little bit about with that beholder, where somebody had taken the idea of it and changed it. Likewise, there's all kinds of stuff that you could do. We talked about, well, I mean, there's an adult black dragon, brass dragon, bronze dragon, copper dragon. There would be absolutely nothing stopping you from creating a turquoise dragon, which I don't believe exists in this SRD. And I do like that it's alphabetized, but I don't see that it's, yeah. So they've just got the black, blue, bronze, brass, copper, gold, green, red, silver, white. So if you want to create a turquoise dragon, and say, for example, you wanted to take blue and a mixture of blue and a mixture of green and come up with a, combine those two dragons and use some of their stats and abilities and create a homebrewed turquoise dragon and publish that. It's probably not a bad idea to still include this piece of terminology, legal information in your publication, just to keep yourself safe. But, and do keep in mind, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an attorney. I know how to interpret legal documentation, documents, but just to be on the safe side, I would include that. Especially, yeah, Noir Dragon, that would be a nice one. Yeah, instead of a Black Dragon, it's a Noir Dragon. Or a Shadow Dragon. Instead of a Shadow Dragon, it's a Noir Dragon. That would be cool. But no, basically how I look at it is, or how I interpret it is, if you want to try to sell this, unless you are a big time publisher and you have super deep pockets that you can manufacture these books by the thousands, you're, as a small third-party creator, your number one outlet is likely going to be drive-through RPG or DM's Guild. And as such, if you're publishing on there, you're likely trying to cater specifically to that 5e crowd, and definitely want to include that attribution, that legal attribution in that. And this one, okay, so this, Daniel brings up a really good point too. I think a big part of that confusion is because there are different rules for anything you publish on D&D Beyond. Yeah, and that is kind of a completely different can of worms, really, than this SRD, because what you're publishing on D&D Beyond is all homebrew stuff, or what they classify as homebrew stuff, which anybody that has a D&D Beyond account can gain access to and use if they want it, provided that you open it up for everybody to see. One of the key reasons that I doubt seriously, and I really would love to hear some opinions on this in the chat. I doubt seriously that Wizards of the Coast will ever take, we've got 17 people watching currently. It's not much, but I'm a small channel. 17 is good. I like that number. But if all 17 of us were to create some new, never before seen stuff on D&D Beyond, I don't see that Wizards would take any of that and feed it into their AI machine. Now, we know that they are working with AI. We know that they're taking their historical document, historical adventures and settings, and putting that into an AI database so that they can create stuff in the future. It's my understanding that database or data set is going to be used specifically to help keep things from getting disjointed and non-congruent, to keep the uniformity of a setting in place, for example. Yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking of, O'Brien, is the 10-eyed oracle. That could be it. That very well could be it. And I wish my Shadow Dark was within arm's reach. It's in the other room, though, because I've been playing the hell out of it lately. It's a fun game. Can't help it. But even Shadow Dark gives the 5.1 license attribution in it. She even states that she doesn't have to, but she'd rather side on being safe than sorry. Anyway, what I was saying about the AI database that WotC is working on, if they were to take all of our material that we have put on D&D Beyond and feed that into it, that is going to simply muddy out and water down their settings and rule set. Because let's say, I don't know, how many custom subclasses are there on D&D Beyond these days? I would look up, but I'm not logged into my account because, again, I wanted to show that this is available to anybody without an account. It's for public consumption. But let's say you've got I don't know, someone's going to create a master assassin subclass for the rogue, right? That there is a specific dagger and a specific move that if you always roll a 6 on a d6, it's an instant kill. Well, if they were to steal that, plug that into an AI, that is going to only muddy down or water down rather the rule set and cause so much brand confusion. Because if they're trying to create an AI database that uses the official information, them putting in homebrew stuff, that it's not going to mesh right. It's not going to work with the rule set. That's why I think a lot of people getting all up in arms about WotC doing that with your material. That's why I just don't think it's a valid argument. I don't think it's a valid concern to even have. Now, I will say, before we jump into the fan content policy, I want to jump back into the D&D Beyond for just a moment. And again, you can see I'm not signed in. I'm just looking at everything for that is available for public consumption. But if we go to sources and view all sources, these are everything that shows up as being in the library. This is all stuff that you can have access to freely and openly. So like the D&D Beyond basic rules, that's for free for download. The basic rule set for 2014 is free. There's a Sage Advice Compendium. Again, that's free, which they're going to be coming out with for the new 2024 version as well. But if you take a look at all of this, these are the source books, right? And then you have adventures. And then you have the partnered content. And it is under partnered content that I think a lot of folks might be getting a little concerned about where their creations will show up without their permission. And that, again, is not going to happen. Because the folks that create Rick and Morty, even though this is no longer available, but the folks that created Rick and Morty, they own those copyrights. That is their intellectual property. Wizards of the Coast didn't take it from them. They have a license. Both parties have a licensed agreement. And when this was being sold, those creators made money off of every single sale. Flea Mortals. Now, while it shows you the table of contents, you can't actually get access to it, because if you click it, it's going to try to sell it to you. But these guys, they have a license with Wizards of the Coast. If I buy this book right now, they get a portion of that sale. D&D, Wizards of the Coast gets a portion of it as well, but it's being sold through a license. They didn't steal it from them. That's not how that works. One of the things that I feel that Wizards of the Coast is sorely lacking, they have the capability, adventures. I have never understood why they don't produce an adventure of the month and sell it for $5. It's a PDF, or however their version of navigation through here is. Sell it for $5. I wonder how many people would flock to stuff like that, official D&D campaigns. Now, a smart creator would be taking this system reference document 5.2, and they would be putting together an adventure of the month and selling it over on D&D or Drive Through RPG, or DM's Guild rather. I wonder if I should do that. Goths in Rome. Yeah, same reason that Disney can't copyright Rapunzel, Snow White, Cinderella, etc. They can only copyright their depictions of them, and that's absolutely right. That's why you can have the generic Little Mermaid. Disney didn't write Little Mermaid. They didn't create Little Mermaid. That was a Hans Christian Andersen that did that. And now they may have gotten there's no may have. They got a license to create that, the cartoon. And they own the copyright of their depiction of her. But yeah. And that's kind of the same thing, is anything that you want to create on this, Wizards of the Coast is going to own the copyright of it. But through the OGL, Open Gaming License, and this SRD document, you are granted that license to be able to use their intellectual property and make money doing it. Okay, so I want to jump over to the fan content. This is new. Actually, it is not new. This was last updated on November 5th of 2017. So it was my understanding that the fan content policy was going to be updated with new stuff as well. I lost my mouse for a second. Roger says Adventure League could be considered the module of the month, and that's true. That is very true. It could be. I hate to say it, I've never had fun playing those. I think it was because it was always too mechanical for my table. we have certainly taken our fair share of older modules, like from AD&D, and quasi converted them to 5th edition to play, which really doesn't take a whole lot of effort to do that. I mean, if for example, there's a skeleton that shows up in one, instead of using the AD&D stats, we'll use the 5th edition stats, that kind of thing. But yeah, this fan content policy, I'm a little disappointed because I really thought that was supposed to be updated. But basically, this allows fans to use Wizards IP in fan content. It's governed by the same rules that you learned on the playground. Share freely, keep it clean, and don't hurt others. In other words, what they don't want you to do, they don't want you to make a Vecna porno. That's it, basically. That's kind of what it boils down to. That means that we ask you to follow the rules. One word, free. You can use Wizards intellectual property except for the restrictions listed in 3. Don't hurt others. To make fan content that you share with the community for free. Free means free. Can't require payments, surveys, download subscriptions, or email registration to access your fan content. Can't sell or license your fan content to a third party. And your fan content must be free and clear of others, including Wizards, to view, access, share, and use without paying you anything, obtaining your approval, or giving you credit. Fan content would be, I want to create some kind of a new snow golem that uses the basis of Wizards of the Coast's intellectual property to do so. I can't require folks to pay for that. You have to tell the community that it's unofficial. So if you want to create a website that was, basically just talking about D&D and all of the fun stuff that they do, or the stuff that you hate about them, that would fall under the fan content. Even though if you hate something, it means you're not really a fan. And if that's the case, if you're not a fan, why would you do it in the first place? Because at that point, you're just kind of wasting your breath. But anyway. Dice Tail says, you can't sell it, but Wizards can, not fair. No, that's not, I don't think that's what it's citing. It's saying that you can't sell or license your fan content to any third parties for any type of compensation, and your content must be free for others, including Wizards, to view, access, share, and use without paying you anything, obtaining your approval, or giving you credit. Well, I mean, you're using their intellectual property. So the workaround on that is to create that tin-eyed oracle, and you've created something new that you don't have to share or provide to Wizards for free. Tell the community it's unofficial. And again, if you're creating something like I'll use Shadow Dark as the example. If you're creating something like Shadow Dark is its own system. It uses some of the, I want to say mechanics, but it's not even mechanics that are inherent to D&D. It's mechanics that are kind of generic to role-playing. Rolling dice, that's generic to role-playing. Almost every role-playing system out there uses them, with the exception of a couple like that use decks of cards and that kind of thing. But yeah, so I mean, you got to make sure that your fan content is not endorsed, or you got to be clear that it's not endorsed or sponsored by Wizards. It's unofficial. Include a note with your fan content explaining that blah is unofficial content permitted under the fan content policy. Don't hurt others. Again, this is, you can't create something that's specifically out to hurt a minority or anything else that kind of goes against society's norms. I mean, be smart about it. Don't try to create something that's chasing down people of a certain element. and persuasion and vilify it. That's nobody cares about that. I mean, that might be important to you, but honestly, the vast majority of people out there, they don't care. I mean, they don't care to, let me rephrase, they care, but they don't care to see that type of creation. Don't hurt wizards. In other words, don't make a vecna porno, because they would consider that to be detrimental to their intellectual property. No bad stuff. Again, don't make a vecna porno. Practice safe sponsorship. Don't use a sponsor that would be harmful to wizards. Don't promote our competitors or endorse inappropriate or offensive sponsors. So you're probably not going to want to create content that, I don't know, an adult toy manufacturer is going to sponsor. I don't know that they're out there. Maybe they are. I don't know. That's not really a realm that I run around in, but follow the law of the land. It's your fan content, so you're solely responsible for ensuring that your creations don't violate the laws of your region, country, plane, or dimension. Funny little thing there. One last thing, please don't pull us into legal battles. Our lawyers are busy enough. If Wizards of the Coast, our partners, affiliates, or employees get hit with legal claims, fees, you're going to be responsible for that. And then it has some frequently asked questions. It talks about what you cannot include, like these are the trademarks and logos that you may not include in your fan content. Can I create a fan page about your games and use Wizards art? Yes, we love it. Just use the policies outlined above. That is correct, Goths. No, you cannot create that. Now, if you wanted to create that independently of D&D, go for it. But no, I don't think Wizards would allow for that. Does this mean I can get a beholder eyelid tattoo? Sure, actually. We get this question a lot. You're free to tattoo as you please, but Wizards won't be responsible for future tattoo removal costs or your life choices. Yeah, so this has not actually been updated in any way. It's the same information that has been there since 2017. Like I said, I really thought they were going to update that. I want to jump back a moment because so the creator FAQ is a little bit further down on that main page. Okay. So if you're making something other than TTRPG content, our fan content policy might be what you need. Interested in creating work based on WotC IP? Fan content covers this content. What is fan content? Unofficial work you create using our NP, including fan art, videos, podcasts, blogs, websites, streaming content, tattoos. So basically what I create on my channel, that's considered to fall under the fan content policy. If I were to create adventures, supplement material, and try to publish that as a PDF or as a physical book, then that would fall under the SRD, the System Reference Document, as well as the OGL. Yeah, satire aside, and that would be the one exception. If you're creating something as satire, that's a different realm to explore right there, as far as what the rights are, the legal rights, and that kind of thing. What else? So questions, guys. What questions do y'all have here? I want to jump back into the SRD. And as I mentioned, I mean, the SRD is basically the material itself. It is a combined Dungeon Master's Guide, Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, kind of all rolled into one. Again, it doesn't have all of the trade dress that the published books do, nor is it the fancy imagery that you'll find in here. It's not the same like on D&D Beyond. Again, this is anybody that wants to go to D&D Beyond. You'll have to have an account to access it. You can check out the rhythm of play, and it details out. But take a look at. Let me get rid of some of these here so we can just bounce back and forth. Okay, so if you take a look at the listing here for rhythm of play, and then we bounce over here to the rhythm of play on page 5. The rhythm of play. So you see that the overall layout, the trade dress, it's different. What you're not allowed to do is you're not allowed to take this material as it's presented on D&D Beyond and use it. What you have to do is take this document and use the material as it's presented here, even though the material may visually read the same. So for example, let's take a look. Okay. The Dungeon Master describes a scene. That's word for word. The DM tells the players where their adventures are. GM tells the players where the adventures are and what's around them, how many doors lead out of the room, what's on the table, and so on. How many doors lead out of the room, what's on the table, and so on. So, I mean, it looks like it's going to read word for word, but I'm sure that there are some elements that are in here Well, I do not like their navigation. I've never liked the D&D Beyond navigation. But anyway, I'm sure that what's in here, some of the wording is going to have slight variation to what is in this. Keep in mind, too, that this is the SRD 5.2. If they make any errata changes, that 5.2 designation is going to have to be updated. You'll always be able to use what's in this, but if they change, for example, how ability scores work, if they go 1 to 2 and then 3 to 9, then they're going to do a 5.2.1 or 0.2 whatever. That said, if in here they change it, they don't have to change anything. They can just make the change, never tell you. When this gets updated, that change has to be that change is going to be made known. So you'll get, I mean, just by sheer fact that they're going to have to create a whole new document to allocate for that information, you'll know that it's been updated. Michael says, I can do a lot, yet creative content is ultimately derived from what is fed. I like to believe true creativity is still something that only human beings can do. Old D&D, same as new D&D, basically. AI can do a lot, yet AI creative content is ultimately derived from what is fed. Yeah, I mean, you're correct. AI content is what is derived from what it's fed. My point is, if you and I create 7 different versions of a red dragon, and Wizards of the Coast is wanting to be consistent with their version of what a red dragon is, they're not going to take my material or your material or 16 other iterations of a red dragon and feed it into that AI database. Otherwise, when they go to say, we need an adventure featuring a red dragon, it's who knows where it's going to be pulling from, and it's not going to be consistent from one area of their game to another if they're using our homebrew material. That's why I don't think we have to worry about that. If they end up doing something like that, they're just going to be using their local interpretation or their local creation of the red dragon. Now, they may have red dragon that pops up from adventure to adventure to adventure that's plugged into this AI system. But at that point, it's going to be their creation that they're feeding into it, so it'll be a consistent red dragon throughout. Roger asks, was the warg changed from Uni and the Lost Horn in 2024 SRD? I don't know. Let's take a look at warg. I don't know. That's on page 339. I don't know what. So this is what the warg shows right here. I couldn't tell you what the one from Uni and the Lost Horn was, because again, I'm not on this. I'm not logged in because I'm wanting to show what's available to anybody that just goes there to the page. That would be, however, here. Yeah, and I'd have to sign in. I have it on my signed in account, but I'm not going to worry about signing in right now. But if you wanted to reference it, I'll leave this up while I kind of answer a couple of other questions if you want to see, and just let us know in the chat, see if you see any differences. Goth says, once we get to quantum computing, we could likely see something that could be creative. I agree. I won't deny that. I don't want to say that I'm on the fence about AI. I think that it has its time and it has its place. I think that it can definitely be used as a tool. I'm not a big fan. I got big into doing AI generative imagery. I liked it because I can't draw, and I just thought it was neat to be able to take something in my mind's eye that I couldn't reproduce myself, right? And I could plug my mental description of it into Midjourney, for example, and it would spit out something that was like, wow, that's when I close my eyes, that's exactly how I envisioned it. And I think that alone is pretty cool. The downside to that is I don't agree with Wizard of the Coast, for example, using AI art in their published material. I'm not going to sit here and say it's because artists struggle. They do. Everybody struggles. I want to do what I love. I love being on YouTube, and I love doing, chatting with you guys. I love creating content and videos for YouTube. I don't have the luxury of being able to do that day in and day out. Now, would AI help me do that? Not really. I mean, what I do is not dependent on AI. There's a key difference between what I could do versus what an artist can do. I won't argue that. AI can replace an artist, yes. Can AI replace what I do? I mean, I guess if somebody really wanted to I don't know, not Dolly. Come on, guys, help me. What's the chat GPT? There we go. I guess if somebody wanted to, they could take Chat GPT and just start turning out video ideas after video ideas. But I don't know if you'd have that same passion behind what was being put out there or not. I don't know. I'm still kind of on the fence about it. But like Goth says, give it about 10 years before those are commercially available, the quantum computers. But I think, given time, yeah, AI is going to get better. It's going to get trickier to identify what is AI and what is not. I don't know, we seem to be coming up with AI quite a bit, but anyway. Roger, okay, so this is regarding the warg. You've got the store's PDF and it looks the same. I got the store PDF since they first sent out to friendly game stores as a download. Okay, so yeah, so it doesn't look like there's much of a difference there. And if anything, I would say they may have, what I have experienced, some of the errata has been in monsters from the, yeah, and I can't reach it, but from the published book monster manual to eroded stuff that we see on D&D Beyond. Some of the stuff that I've seen, they may have like tweaked an armor class by 1 point or altered the hit points from, like, instead of 4d10 it'd be like 3d10, or 4010 instead of 4010 plus 4, it might be 4010 plus 2. You know, it's been small stuff, small tweaks like that I've seen for the most part. I haven't seen anything majorly drastic change. Jumping back into the magic items, for example. So let's say you wanted to create something that, and when I say create, so I don't mean your character creating, I mean you as a creative creating something to publish and sell. So if you wanted to include, you know, magic items in your publication, this would be the section of the SRD that you check out. And again, it just kind of talks about, if we jump into, or jump back into rather, the magic items here. So adventures hold the promise, but not a guarantee. And I don't think I am on the same section. Well, that's a great way to grind the stream to a halt, yeah. Magic items, how about that? In the dungeon, okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh boy. One of these days, I will figure out how to use a computer. Magic items. So this is what you get in the from D&D Beyond. This section over here. This is okay. We'll have to jump back and forth. So this is D&D Beyond's, and this is the SRD. Magic items. Magic items are gleaned from hordes of felled monsters or discovered in long lost vaults. Magic items are gleaned from the hordes of felled monsters or discovered in long lost vaults. Same thing. Such items grant capabilities of a character could rarely have otherwise, or they complement their own capabilities in wondrous ways. Again, says the same thing. Now, what we don't get in the SRD, and again, this is all trade dress. Notice how this is outcropped with this nice little tan outcropping box, right? Magic item rules for identifying, attuning to, and using magic items appear in equipment. Additional rules are presented below. You don't have that here. Excuse me, guys. Attunement prerequisites, items made for specific creatures, unusual anatomy, paired items. Again, you don't have that information here. You've got magic item categories. That's where you jump in. So the SRD completely removes this element from it. Now, it may have it listed elsewhere in the SRD, but it's just not listed in order right there. Then you jump into, so you wouldn't necessarily be able to include, if this is not in the SRD, this is information you couldn't include in your creation. My disappointment is that they didn't include bastions. In the end, I'll just make stronghold rules, but I would have like a little leeway to use bastions. So actually, I'm going to leave that comment up because I do want to talk about bastions for a moment. I'm going to jump back into full mode here. Excuse me again. This is why I brought stuff to drink. That was too big a treat. So now where did my, there. Tiberius the DM. I agree with you 100%. I'm not impressed that, and I too am disappointed that they did not provide to us bastions. And that actually brings me to, so I'm about 15 minutes behind schedule because I wanted to get to this portion of the stream, but your comment brings a great segue into it. And that is, I want to cover the contents of what we can find in this SRD. I told you guys that today was going to be kind of a marathon live stream. So back in the day, yeah, I'm going to turn into one of those kind of DMs for a moment. Back in the day, 80s, early 90s, when we were playing AD&D, we we didn't have bastions. Bastions wasn't a thing, but all the players, they wanted to have their own castle. You know, they wanted to have a castle, and 90% of the time it was they'd go in and try to kill the king and take over. Other times they would, you know, do subjugation or subvertiveness, and or you flat out use gold and try to buy a rundown castle and build it up, fix it up. But we had to create our own rule set for stuff like that. Although there was a supplement that came out, and I think it was called the Castle Building Guide. I'm having to access memory from decades ago, so forgive me if that's not exactly what it's called. But it was a good basis for what the DM could do with players to develop their own base, their own sanctuary, their own stronghold. And while we don't have, and I kind of just in peeking through all of this, we don't have access to Bastion rules as appears in, actually, it's not even in this, in the basic rules. Is it? No, it's not. I don't think that there would be anything that would prevent you from, like you said, calling it a stronghold rule set. I'd like to see, I would have liked to have seen something that was a little official, if for any other reason, just to kind of lend a little bit of oomph and credence to creating it. Guideline. That's what I'm trying to say. But what we do get, what the segue I wanted to go into, so I appreciate the comment, because that, like I said, that kind of kicked me in the direction I was really trying to get to anyway. Content-wise, I want to go over what we can find in this SRD. And of course, we've looked at the legal information. That's on page 1. Then you have playing the game. This goes over the rhythm of play. Let's see if I can... You guys can't see it because there we go. Like I said, one of these days I will figure out how computers work. So we've gone over legal information. The next section is playing the game. Goes over the rhythm of play, 6 abilities, which is going to talk about your, strength, dex, intelligence, charisma, constitution, all that. The D20 tests and how what you do to do that, which is the rolling of the D20. Advantage, disadvantage, proficiency, actions, bonus actions, reactions, social interaction, exploration, how vision and light works, how hiding works, interacting with objects, hazards, and travel. Goths. And I want to point out as many comments as I can, because, and this one's a good one, that Goths likes the idea of bastions, but don't really like the 5.2 version of it. And that's kind of my thing too. That's why I'm not disappointed. I'm disappointed that they didn't include the rule set in this SRD, but I'm also not disappointed at the same time, because that to me is a little freeing and gives us a touch more flexibility to create those strongholds how we see fit. Not under the rule set that the Dungeon Master Guide dictates that they should be. Further in the SRD, you get combat, order of combat, how you can move and position yourself, making an attack, all that good stuff. Damage and healing, it covers hit points, damage rolls, critical hits, damage types. This would be stuff like slashing damage, blunt damage, all that kind of stuff. Immunity, resistances, healing, dropping to 0 temporary hit points. Goes over even how to do character creation, how to multiclass rather. The various trinkets you can find, and then we've got the classes: barbarian, bard, cleric, druid, as well as their subclasses: fighter, monk, paladin, ranger, rogue, sorcerer, warlock, and wizard. And then you've got the character origins of acolyte, criminal, sage, soldier. Now, again, the main book itself, the main DM's or the main player's handbook, has more character backgrounds. These are just providing to you 4 basic ones. So what could you do if you wanted to create character origins that, I don't know, had 50 new character origins, or character backgrounds rather? You can do that with the SRD. There's nothing stopping you from doing that and publishing it and making money doing it. I just don't, again, I harken back to what some of the chief complaints were this past week about, WotC stealing that for their AI stuff. If you were to create 50 new custom backgrounds, I don't know that WotC would steal that from you and plug into their own AI. I mean, they might, if it's a good enough idea, but it's less likely that they would steal it for their AI and more likely that they would steal it as their, just to have as its own unique creation. But again, if you have it published, your copyright protects that. I mean, you still have a copyright to it, even though you're using their license. You still own that copyright. And I just don't think they're going to touch stuff like that. They don't want that kind of legal hassle. Then it goes into the character species of dragonborn, dwarf, elf, gnome, Goliath, halfling, human, orc, tiefling. If you wanted to create up, your own species, go for it. SRD lets you do that. SRD 5.2 lets you do that. The feats, feat descriptions, equipment, armor, tools, magic items, spell casting. If you want to describe spells, all of this is in the SRD. Spells, gaining spells, spell descriptions, and that's something I want to look at real quick. Page 107. And there we go. Notice how it just immediately jumps into the spell descriptions, and everything is all alphabetically. Acid arrow. Oh wow! Notice a font goof up. So this is all bold. That's not. What's weird is this is lowercase, capital, and then lowercase. This is all uppercase. That's interesting. I wonder if it has to do with the fact that this is a cantrip, whereas this is a full-on spell. Anyway, it could just be a goof up when they put the document together. There you go. I like that. Background, Pinkerton. Add +1 to strength, +5 to deception, +10 to legal sleazy. There you go. But I like that we get spell descriptions in this. And again, the trade dress is not the exact same as what you'd find in this online version. Spell descriptions. So for example, acid splash, which, I mean, there's not much of a trade dress here, really. Just jump back up to acid splash. Yeah, and see, it doesn't hyperlink. So like this, each creature in that sphere, whereas this hyperlinks to, you can mouse over and it shows you what sphere means, what it does, what the area effect is. So you get a lot of access to a lot of different various spells that you could include in your publication. Let's see. Spells. The rules glossary, 176. We'll take a look at that. So these are going to be the basic rules for the game. Tags and brackets, and it explains what that means. What you means, see also. But then it gets into the rules definitions, like ability checks. It explains to you what the ability check is, ability score and modifier. I don't think that you would have to, if you wanted to create a publication that talked about ability checks, I don't know that you would necessarily have to define it out as it shows here. I think you could just simply use ability check, like so-and-so performs an ability check, or a constitution check. You don't necessarily have to list it out. I guess you could, but under the license, I don't think that's required to fully explain it out. Not to mention, I mean, if you're intent on publishing this or printing this rather, you want to keep it as short as possible page-wise, because printing pages, that's kind of expensive, but that's for a completely different topic. Additional rules glossary. Adventure explains what the term adventure means. Ally. Breaking objects. Carrying capacity lists the table. That might be an important element to add or include in your publication. Object hit points. What was it for 5th edition, the original 5th edition? I think I saw somebody had created a book that it was every something along the lines of every object you can think of in D&D. And somewhere I've got it printed out. It's about a 200-page document, and it listed, everything you could think of, from bottles to locks to doors to, puzzle boxes, a sheet of paper, a quill, you name it, and it had it listed. But it also listed, the size of it, how fragile it was, and the resilience of it. And it was just kind of neat, because that was always, okay, when you're playing, God, what, guys, let me hear from in the comments here, what are some online role-playing games that everybody has played? World of Warcraft, for example. So, are you for the Horde or for the Alliance? Doesn't matter. But I think a lot of people are familiar with World of Warcraft, right? You go into a dungeon and they've got all this neat artwork out there, an alchemist table. And you could sit there and swing. If you're playing a warrior, you could sit there and whirlwind to your heart's content. And you'll never break whatever's on that table, because that's a static piece of artwork that's not meant to be interacted with. That was always, to me, that was always the appeal of Dungeons and Dragons, because you can interact with anything out there that you can think of. And so if we created an alchemist table and the warrior decided to just go hell on and just destroy everything, well, that's where stuff like this comes into play. It might be full of tiny bottles, or fragments of, in this case, a barrel next to it, or the table itself. And that's what this document or this publication was. Like I said, about 200 pages of mundane objects like this, but it listed their size, their fragility, and resilience. And so when we wanted to have that immersion of objects in our game, this kind of gave us a good basis to go off of. We could come up with it on the fly, but having something to reference, that was always a little bit more fun and made things move a little smoother. Okay, so back to what else we can find in the SRD. Monsters, we've taken a look at the monsters, animals, indexes, and then it goes into the index of stat blocks for the monsters. So again, there's nothing listed in here, and I'm going to jump to the last page and check out the zombie. It's not the last page, but it's the last monster. Where is it? There it is. There. Again, there's nothing in this SRD that tells you or that restricts you from what Wizards of the Coast is going to do with your content. Again, that all is going to fall under the OGL. Again, two hugely different documents. Open gaming license, that is what grants you the ability to use the material. System reference document, that is the material that you are licensed to use. Two separate documents that work together, but two separate documents. They have not updated the OGL. There is not an OGL for 5.2. It still falls under that 1.0A OGL. Everything in SRD 5.2 still falls under the OGL 1.0A. Roger, throw the object hit point 200-page document in a link in the D&D below when you get a chance, please. I'll see if I can find it. In fact, Roger, if you join up my Discord, I'll look for it because it would take me probably 20 minutes to hunt it down here somewhere in the room. But hit my Discord up, send me a message or something over there, and then link to the Discord's down in the description as well. But I'll look it up. I know that I got it off of it was either off of DM's Guild or Drive Through RPG. I just can't remember which one it was. But I'll look it up and I'll give you the link to it. It's really cool. Richard Dotson, yeah. Sorry, too busy copying stuff out of SRD and fitting it into our game. I get it, and that's the neat thing is with this SRD. I mean, technically, you can play the game you can play the game of Dungeons and Dragons using just the material that's found in this SRD. There's absolutely nothing stopping you from it because there is enough information in it to be able to cohesively play the game. And it's all free, completely free. Like I said, I am in this on D&D Beyond. I am not signed in. To get to it, you simply go to D&D Beyond, dndbeyond.com. Just go there. And it's under this very first article. You just go to, you can now publish your own creations using the new core rules. Click read more. And it's right here. It's this first link, hyperlink on there, and that gets you to it. Not to mention that if you want to see the trade dress and everything else that's included, now again, the SRD is for you to publish your own creation. You don't have to use the SRD to just simply create your own stuff. You can do that without any documentation. If it's just for you and your table, you don't have to have access to the OGL license to do that. If you and me and Roger and Daniel were sitting down together and we wanted to create up our own strongholds, our own bastions at our table, we don't have to have access to any of this stuff to do that. We can just sit down and do it. What we have to have access to this for is if we decided we wanted to publish that to make money. And that's the key difference. If you're doing it just for homebrew stuff, do whatever you want. That's fine. If you're doing it to publish it, to make money off of it, to sell it, that's where you have to follow the OGL, the license, and the SRD content. But if you just want to just create your own homebrew stuff for you and your table, all you would do is just go to D&D Beyond, go to sources, view all sources. Again, this is all free because, again, I'm not signed in, but you go to all sources, and then you can click on the D&D Beyond basic rules. That's if you wanted to use the new 2024 version of the game, or if you wanted to use the basic 2014 that came out 11 years ago now, you can click on that. But either one will open up the documentation that you would need access to in order to play, again, for free. Why I like the SRD, I'm a physical person. I like the physical books, and I, for the life of me, keep wanting to navigate using this up or down. But with this, provided I have 361 sheets of paper, I can print this out myself and have a hard copy of it, or use half the amount of paper and print it double-sided. Sorry, Roger. Yeah, lunch is over. It's been fun. It has been fun. I'm going to still keep going. So, tune back in if you want. But I do appreciate you spending your lunchtime with us and checking this out. And I will also note that I would love to see, if anybody wants, you can join in on the live with some commentary here. If you do, I've got the link to this, the invite to this down in the description. It's also in my Discord. But I'd love to hear from you if you've got some burning opinions about it. What else is there? We could jump over to the OGL and take a look at exactly what it provides. 3rd edition, 4th edition. So 5th edition, of course, and I don't want to hash the whole OGL issue from a few years back where WotC attempted to change it all. That's not not here for that. But I would be remiss if we didn't kind of briefly gloss over it. I mean, of course, that was a pretty boneheaded move that they tried to do. And content, all of the content creators banded together, a lot of fans of the game banded together, and ultimately Wizards of the Coast had to walk that back, and we were able to stick with the OGL 1.0a, which is what ultimately allows us to create what we want to create and sell it for profit. Daniel says, sadly, the SRD 5.2 doesn't cover all the feats, just a small handful, but that's still more than SRD 5.1, which only covered a grappler feat. That's true. And what it also does not cover doesn't cover every single magic item out there, doesn't cover every single spell that's out there. And what was the other thing that it didn't do? I noticed, it's only got a few feats. It was backgrounds. It also doesn't cover all of the backgrounds that are in the game itself either. So if you had, for example, a background that is in the published player's handbook, that is something that you could not include in if you were to make a custom character with a custom background. You wouldn't be able to include what's not visible here in the SRD 5.2 in your publication. Now, if you wanted to create it just for your home table, you're free and clear to do whatever you want with it. Well, guys, I think I've pretty much covered everything that I was looking to cover. I didn't even get through my through an entire can of Monster. I was really hoping to dig more into this, but we have kind of covered everything that this SRD 5.2 provides to us. I was going to take a look at this OGL, the Open Game License. Again, if you want to check it out, this is on the Wikipedia page. Kind of gives a good rundown of it. But I do want to point out what it states here. And I'll make it a little larger. I got old eyes, so I need stuff big. So the 2025 update, and it specifically cites SRD will be revised to reflect the 2024 revision to the 5th edition rule set, which it was. SRD 5.2 is scheduled for release under a Creative Commons license today, which we've been looking at. The VP of Franchisee and Product for D&D explains that the SRD will be part of the errata process, ensuring it is regularly updated as official clarifications and corrections are published for our core rulebooks. Future SRDs will be published with new version numbers, allowing us to respond to how players are playing D&D and what creators are creating within the game, and update the SRD with future versions. This is what we were talking about a little bit earlier, in that whereas this is listed as 5.2, if they do an errata on that ward, for example, and they change the armor class to 17, then when they redo this, recompile the SRD, it would be listed as a 5.2.1. They do another update, 5.2.2. If they do a major update, if they decide to include a 5th background, that would probably be a pretty major update, and they would change that to a 5.3 SRD. Actually, it would probably have to be even more major than that to see, a functional point upgrade. Richard says, thank you, Brian, for doing this. I'm happy to. It was something I was really looking forward to doing. Actually took the day off of work today to do this. And the reason that I gave, is straight up, WotC SRD 5.2. Of course, after this, I've got to go outside and fix a water leak. I've got the water shut off right now so I don't have to deal with that. But when I'm done with this, I got to go outside and do that. So another reason why I'm trying to prolong this stream as long as I can, because I am not a plumber. But it's going to be an easy enough fix. I just don't want to do it. I'm procrastinating. I don't like it. But to that end, I don't know. Anybody have any other questions? Something else we could blather about for a bit? If not, then I think I'm going to shut stuff down. I think we're done. I got another Wisdom Wednesday coming out tomorrow. Yeah, Goth, rolling nat 20 on your plumbing check. Hopefully, I don't have to spend too much gold trying to fix it either. I think, yeah, what I'm going to be doing is eventually shifting everything over to PEX, getting off of PVC and CPVC and just going direct to PEX. We get some harsh winters here that I don't know, the piping is old, and it tends to crack and freeze, and I think with PEX that should help reduce that. But again, different topic for a different video. In the release of this, Goths asks, in the release of this, was there any reference to the crisis they created a few years ago? No. So that was what a lot of creators, when I say creators, I'm not talking about publishers of D&D content to make money off of. I'm referring to creators as in content creators on YouTube. A lot of them are or were, the sky is falling, and it just got worse. And oh my God, it's the end. Everything is over because of 5.2 SRD. And that's just not the case. That was the only crisis that has been brought up, is a bunch of people supposing what was going to happen when this was released earlier this morning. Obviously, that's not the case. No, as far as all of that goes, that's an open and shut case. You know, they WotC attempted to do an OGL 1.2 or 2.0 or whatever the hell it was, and ultimately ended up having to walk it all back to 1.0A because fans like us got that up in arms over the change that they were trying to do, and they ended up putting it all. I mean, I really think that creators got and now creators, I don't mean YouTubers. Now I'm referring to those that create publications to sell. I think those creators really got the better end of that stick because it really gave them that freedom. It didn't put that thumb of oppression on them and limit them to what kind of creativity they could have. They were now free to create whatever they wanted, provided that it fell under the SRD guidelines. And that's what this 5.2 is. It's just, guidelines for the new edition of Dungeons and Dragons. That's it. That's exactly what I was talking about earlier. 2E's Castle Guide. It is an awesome book. I loved it. It even had some tear out pages that I need to get another copy of it just to have for my collection, so that it's complete. But I've got the version that I have. Most of the pages were ripped out, and we didn't make copies. We used the original what were in there. And this was the 80s, 90s. We didn't think anything about it. Oh, you mean we're consuming something that's in this book that we can't unconsume? Maybe we should have made copies, and we never did. So that's why I'd like to have it just for my collection. But yeah, and I like the concept of I have always liked the concept of characters and players having a fortification, a castle, stronghold, bastion, whatever you want to call it, to kind of customize and create as their own. World of Warcraft, they kind of did this in one of their expansions a few years back, where each player had their own stronghold that they could customize, kind of customize, but kind of not. You were limited. I mean, you could customize it, but of course there were limitations of the game, which is again why I like playing the tabletop version of D&D, is because anything you can think of, provided your DM agrees with it, but anything that you guys can come up with and think of, it's allowable and you can do it. If you want to demand that there are parties every third Wednesday of every month at your stronghold, by all means do it. Y'all can do that. If you want to make it out of every house there has a thatched hut roof, just as an example, you can do that. Why not? And I like the concept of just being able to do whatever you want to do, because it's all, it is theater of the mind. I mean, we even had, a couple of players get super creative. Back in the day, there were a few different like graphic visual programs that you could build maps with. Oh gosh, what was that big one? Campaign Cartographer. And I guess that's still big now. I never could master it myself, but I had a couple of players that were real big into it. And, at the table, we would hand sketch out, kind of the layout of their town and castle and all the little huts and stuff that they had. And these two players would then take that stuff, and I don't know how long it took them, but they took it and put it into Campaign Cartographer, and they created some really cool stuff. We got it printed. I remember that was kind of expensive to do back then, to print it. But so I wish I could find that stuff too. Somewhere I've got it, but again, who knows how long it would take me to find. Yeah. So there's just, I don't know, there's lots of stuff with this 5.2 SRD that you can now use and create. I don't see too much in the way of limitation over what 5.1 offered. It's mechanics, or not mechanics, it's elements. Mechanics are really, I mean, it's got some degree of mechanics. You've got, like we talked about, let me jump over here. So like some of the mechanics, it talks about D20 tests, bonus actions. I guess technically that's kind of a mechanic. How to make an attack, that is going to involve some mechanics. But for the most part, it's not, I don't want to call it setting, because it's not really setting. It's just conceptualization of what you can have in your material, your published material. I don't think that this is a bad document. I think that it's a good document for folks that want to use it to create published stuff, published works. The limitations that you'll have are under the OGL, the Open Gaming License. If you want to see that, I don't think the Wikipedia has it. It talks about the proposed Creative Commons. So OGL 1.0A download. I know that it's available. Wizard of the Coast does provide it, but you can also go to opengamingfoundation.org. Here we go, SRD OGL. So this is the SRD, but it also has the OGL. So this is for 5.1. This is the original version for 2014, but the OGL is the same. So, it's just 2 pages. It's not very long. What I'm a little surprised at is that we don't have a copy of the OGL listed in this document. We do for this one. And again, this is direct from Wizard of the Coast, media.wizards.com, media.dnd.com. But the 2014 version of the SRD does have and includes the OGL, which it dictates out what the license is that you can use. 5.2 falls under that OGL. So if you're going to publish anything in an attempt to make money, the license is the OGL. The license grants you the ability to use the material. The material is the system's reference document. And it's in that document that you can find the material that you are able to use, the material that you are licensed to use via the Open Gaming License, the OGL. That's it, guys. I think we've said it all. It's an exciting time if you're wanting to create works to sell. I think that it is beyond cool that the capability is out there for you to create a D&D product, a supplement for Dungeons and Dragons, and be able to make money at it. I remember putting together a proposal. I was probably 16 years old and sent it to TSR, and they sent it back saying, "This is neat. We like it, but you're too young to enter into a legal agreement, so we can't accept it." And I was crushed. I hated it. Today, you could do that if you're 15 years old, 16 years old. Well, to an extent, I think you still have to fall under the legal age to be able to enter into a legally binding deal. But the OGL coupled with the SRD, either one, SRD for 2014 5.1 or the new one, SRD for 2024, either one of those coupled with the OGL grants to you the capability of making money off of what you have created for Dungeons and Dragons. And I find that kind of exciting. I think that's neat. I like it. Now, I could go on and on about the failings or their attempted destruction of the original OGL. I think that is for a completely different live stream video. I think that we saw a lot of benefits come from their attempt to change it and alter it. For one, we got quite a few really great games as a result come out because creators got fed up with trying to adhere to some really absurd rules, guidelines, I should say, not rules as in SRD, but guidelines as in what restrictions Wizards of the Coast was giving them. And you saw stuff like, you saw creative stuff come out like Shadow Dark. That's probably the biggest one the past few years. It's a great game. It's a very rules light game. It harkens back to and gives you the feel of, some of the old school D&D stuff. Very rules light. But what I really like about it is that because it is rules light, a lot of those rules are open to interpretation by the DM or the Game Master, as they call it in that game, which, of course, I'm partial to that automatically because, hey, Game Masters. But that said, I am open. I'm very partial to open interpretation of rules because we like to go crazy at our table. We have a lot of fun. Rules are rules. Yes, they're important to have, but it's also a fickle thing at our table because depending on everyone's mood, we all agree. And I know this won't work at every table, but at ours, it works great. We'll change how something works on the fly, well, I don't want to get too far into Shadow Dark because that's not the focus of today's live stream. But but as a result of Wizards of the Coast's attempt to alter and change the deal, the OGL, a few years back, it directly led to the creation of some other really fun games. To the detriment of Wizards, hey, that's their issue to deal with. They got greedy and they wanted their a bigger chunk of that pie. And creators said, nah, we don't need your SRD. We don't need your OGL to create stuff. We're just going to go do it on our own. So that's why you saw the OGL 1.0A get put into Creative Commons. That was their olive branch to the creators. You'll note, I keep saying I'm going to end the stream, but I keep putting more stuff out there because there's so much information to talk about it. So jumping to, let me get this queued up for everybody. Okay, so 5th edition, the original SRD or OGL came out on January 12, 2016. The original game, 5th edition, came out in 2014. So it took them about a year and a half to produce the OGL for 5th edition. Or I'm sorry, the SRD for 5th edition. So think about that. Year and a half for them to produce that document for the original 5th edition, year and a half. Whereas Monster Manual just came out 2 months ago. So we have all 3 core books that have not been out for even half a year yet. We already have the SRD 5.0 or 5.2 for this newer version of 5th edition. So they did some pretty quick work to get it out there. And like I've said, I'm happy to talk shit when shit is warranted to be talked about against Wizards of the Coast. This is not an instance where I feel that's warranted. I think that what they have done by pushing this document out, and it looks solid, it looks to mimic the basic rules that we have had access to for the past few months. I think it's a great olive branch to the creative community. I don't see anything negative about the SRD 5.2. I don't see that they have changed anything about the OGL that has already been in place. Yes, they attempted it a few years back. They had to walk that back because we as a community stood up against it. I'm not going to say it's a we won, they won. We won and so did they. No, bullshit. Come on. This is a win for creatives. This is a win for the hobby, for the D&D hobby. And like I said, I don't see anything negative about this this SRD 5.2 coming out today. I think it's a good thing. Am I going to use it to create something? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I haven't really dug too deep into the new edition of 5th edition yet. I'm still reading through all the core books, trying to. What's difficult is I've been running D&D since the 80s, and I've been running 5th edition pretty much since it came out originally, in 2014, latter part of 2014, 15. And so a lot of my rule set in my mind is 5th edition stuff. And what I fear is going in and sitting down at a table of new players and kind of messing their minds up, because I'm using, even though we may be using the new 5th edition books, my brain automatically goes default to the older 2014 version of D&D and its rules and its mechanics. So that's what's kind of difficult for me. I think if you have never played the game before, this new version is, and you're interested in it, I think this new version is great, fantastic. Grab it, play it, do what you want with it, and you'll be just fine. But it's challenging for an older guy like me that is used to rules that they've been doing for the past 10 years, albeit it was the same way with 3rd edition. And again, when I went from 2nd edition to 3rd edition, it was the same way there too. I did not get into 4th edition, just completely skipped that one. I've got a couple of the books, but I just never could get into the play. I didn't like the trade dress. I didn't like how the books were laid out. I found it personally incredibly difficult to navigate the books, to the terrain of the material. The layout was just very complex. I didn't care for it. So I just never really played 4th edition. That said, there's some elements in 4th edition that I like, which further screws up my ability to competently sit down and play or run the new 5th edition 5.5 version of the game, because at my table, I use a mishmash of all the systems, and that's kind of my go-to default play style. I like Bloodied from 4th edition. I think it's great. I like the armor class. I think it's of how 5th edition presents it. I like the D20 roll system of 3rd edition. The armor class of 5th edition, I think, is miles above what THAC0 was. THAC0, by the way, is not complex in any way. It's just a little bit of math, no big deal. But I mean, that's what we use. That's what I grew up on. So that's part of the reason why I don't find it very challenging or intimidating. But yeah. So anyway, that's pretty much it for me. My history with the game, like I said, goes back decades. We have a lot of fun playing, and I don't know if I'm going to really use this SRD to create content or not, but who knows? That's all I can say is who knows. But I'd like to hear from you. If you are watching this after it has aired live, then I believe it should open up for comments below. If you are going to create some stuff for the SRD 5.2 to sell, to publish, to make money, join up my Discord. Let me know about it. I'd love to help push it out there to more eyes if I can. I'd love to push as many customers your way as possible. Because, hey, if anybody can make money out of this hobby, I'm 100% behind it. I think that's one of the cool things is I have seen so many creators, and by creators, again, I'm not talking now about the YouTube side of things. I'm talking about the publishing side of things. I've seen so many people being able to create content that they have been able to make it their full-time job. They're doing something they enjoy. And, like they say, if you do something you enjoy, well, that beats working. And if I can help push people to your product, I would love to do so. So to that end, feel free to join up my Discord. Send me a link to it. I'll check it out, and I will pass it to as many eyes as I can. And Daniel says, I have a feeling that we're not going to see a lot of supplements for this edition, if only for the fact that WotC is basically unmanned at this point. I have to agree with you. I think that I have a feeling that we will see material pushed out by creators, folks that want to publish the material for themselves to make money off of, onto places like DM's Guild. What I'm also very curious to see is if, jumping back over here, is if on D&D Beyond, if we see, and while they have partnered content, if we'll see a 4th element show up down here that pushes folks to publisher created content. That's what these folks are. These are publisher created content folks. But I'm talking like to the smaller people. Lord of the Rings. This is from Free League Publishing. They're hardly a small publisher anymore by any means. We've got, you look at each one, Flea Mortals, again, hardly a small time publisher of material. Dungeons of Drakenheim, again, Teldori campaign setting. These are not small time creators that are doing this stuff. I would like to see another section here. Maybe it funnels directly over to Drive-Thru or to DM's Guild. But I would like to see a fourth one that kind of encapsulates the smaller publisher. And I think something like that would be a big major boon for them. But of course, yeah, at that point, you got to deal with taxes and all that kind of fun stuff. But hey, if you can make money doing it, I'm happy to try to help push people there. That's what I'm saying. Star. New to your channel, so sorry to ask, but do you have any agreements with WotC? Sort of. I have sort of agreements with WotC. I am a part of their, what they call a D&D creator. No, not what is it called? It is the D&D, yeah, D&D creator program. Basically, I get books from them to review their material. So like on what I was just showing here, this stuff, I won't get copies of these books to review. When they push this material out as brand new, sometimes I'll get it, sometimes I won't. I'm under no obligation to review it, but the restrictions that I have is I do get placed, there are embargoes that are placed on this material. So like, for example, with the Monster Manual, I got it, or where's the new one? Yeah, that is the new one. When I got the Monster Manual, I was under embargo. So I got it about 4 or 5 days before they were ready to release it. And I couldn't talk about it. I could talk about it, but I couldn't show anything from the book. I couldn't talk any specifics about the book. So I was under a restriction for that. But I'm not beholden to Wizards for anything. I could talk good about it. I could talk bad about it. And I've certainly talked my fair share of shit against some of the stuff that they have done and some of the material that they have produced. I'm not one to mince words. I am happy to give them praise when they deserve praise, but I'm also happy to condemn when they deserve being condemned. I was very, very vocal against them with the whole OGL debacle from a few years ago. I was likewise very vocal against them when they tried to sell a Magic the Gathering booster pack for $1,000 that you couldn't even play in a tournament. I've been very vocal against them with certain things, but this 5.2 SRD is, I don't see anything negative there. I don't see it as anything to get all up in arms. I don't see it that the sky is falling. I don't see it that things just got worse. I don't see it that the D&D game is over. Now, what you'll probably see in the coming days, you'll probably see some folks, and now I'm just addressing in general, not necessarily you, Starblazer, but I do appreciate the question. Folks will probably see in the next few days some videos come out from other creators that cite, oh, well, this 5.2 is coming out, so therefore the game of D&D is dying because they've fired all of their creative personnel and they want you to create their stuff for them. Some people are going to believe what they want to believe. I don't see any evidence that that's why they're pushing this out. They're pushing this out because this was the timeline that they were always going to push it out. Did they just get rid of a bunch of creatives? Yes, they did, from the Project Sigil, which was going to be their own online tabletop role-playing system. And I don't see how that would necessarily have any direct connection to the SRD or to creating modules or supplement materials. That said, I do think that that Daniel has a very fair point. And again, I'll remind everybody what Daniel said, that we're not going to see a lot of supplements for this edition, if only for the fact that WotC is basically unmanned at this point. So we did see two of the major creators, top people in WotC quit in the past month. Chris Perkins was one of them. And I don't know how to feel about that. Again, I think that would be a topic for a completely different stream or video. But I also am a very firm believer and supporter of change. I like to see change happen, not for sake of change, but for the sake of bettering a product or an experience or a service. And I think we can all admit that fifth edition, barring this new version of it, but fifth edition started really taking a hard tank downhill in its last year and a half of being around. Um, Hasbro's stock started dropping. They started making, they did layoffs. They had to have layoffs. Monetary wise, I don't know if they got too lofty for their own good. I don't know what the political decisions were behind the scenes on Wizards, or from Hasbro to Wizards, that prompted the real reason for those layoffs or furloughs. Although I guess they haven't been brought back, so technically they were layoffs, not furloughs. Um, I don't. I don't see good quality. Well, at that point, I didn't see good quality product coming out from them. There were a few books that came out, but take a look at the last Vecna adventure. Eve of Ruin, it was terrible. I mean, Vecna was not. Vecna had a. Okay, so on the screen right now, I've got a comment from Daniel. The amount of verbiage that Vecna had in the book, it was about that much. And the book was supposed to be about Vecna. And so that's what I mean by is their quality just plummeted there towards the end of that edition. And it's not like they just gave up because they knew they were working on a new version. I mean, most published books like that are at least a year out, so by the time Vecna came out in, was it February of last year, January of last year? That had to have already been written and sent to the printing company at least 9 months prior to that. Completed and sent to the publisher 9 months prior to that. Prior to that, who knows how long it took them to actually write it and put it together. But if that's any indication, that's why we need a change. That's why I'm looking forward to seeing what this is going to do. This means too that the books that we have that are coming out, this Forgotten Realms, the Eberrons, all the new books coming out this year, those were all still likely completed under the previous heads of Wizards of the Coast, the D&D design team. So I don't have a lot of faith in those, but we'll see. Should I get the review copies? We'll see. And again, I'm going to look at it with a very heavy, excruciating eye. But I don't know. What I'm curious to see is where D&D 5.5, 5.2, for whatever you want to call it, is going to be a year from now. So I want to see what this new team that they're putting together. They don't have a full team yet, but they're having to put a team together. I want to see what they are going to produce. May not be for my crowd. It may not be for the players that sit at my table and play. It may be for a completely different demographic. I don't know, but I am curious to see the direction that they decide to take the game and see. I like change. I like to see it, but mainly because I will also take that material, I will piecemeal it apart, and I will re-put it back together as best I can to make it work at my table for my players. And Goths, I kind of agree with you here. I admit it, cruel, yes, but I believe the layoffs will result in a better product. Just because they were creatives doesn't mean they were good at their jobs, and that's kind of how I see it too. You have to adapt to the current player base and that climate. You have to be able to read the room. I mean, basically, that's what it boils down to. Is you have to be able to read the room. Take a look at, and again, not to get too politicized about it, but take a look at what Disney has done in the recent months with, the new Snow White. Read the room, folks. That's why it was such a it had bad numbers at the theater because you changed too much of what made that movie that, a classic movie. And the masses didn't care for it. And the masses spoke with their wallets and didn't go see it. Something to think about. Something to think about. All right, guys, that's it for me. We've been going for about 2 hours. I hope everybody did enjoy it. I hope we learned something about this SRD, what it is and what it isn't. And, I'll sign off with my standard until next our paths cross. I hope that you create something worth publishing and making money off of. And again, if you do, hit me up with a link. I'd love to check it out, and I'd love to share it with as many eyes as I can possibly share it with. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to finish off my drink, and I'm going to dig deep into here because I have more drinks and evidently a massive chunk of ice in here.